Hello, welcome to my presentation. My name is Kelly. The title of my presentation is I'm a Celebrity, Get Me a Self-Help Book. I decided to focus on this area as I was getting frustrated seeing celebrities on TV and in social media promoting self-help books that appeared to be counselling and psychology theories and techniques, but they weren't referencing the sources, they weren't crediting the original authors, just using the information and selling it as their own personal experiences. And that's what led me to look into this area of celebrity influencers and help-seeking behaviours. So I looked into social media and how celebrities use the platform and build their own brand to promote their products and make money. So they promote perceived personality factors, and they are perceived because it's an online profile. We don't know if that's the true, genuine self. What you post online, that's what people see. You can make up a whole scenario if you wanted, and no one would know any better. But the most important factors are being genuine and engaging. So it's common for people to, when talking about mental health, if they're talking about depression or anxiety, they'll post a selfie where they have no makeup and they're crying or looking distressed, and this all filters into building their brand and creating these perceived expertise. And that's highlighted very well in the fitness industry online. You've got people who follow a strict fitness routine, a diet, and they'll create brands with clothing, fitness equipment, diet books, but they have no expertise, no genuine expertise in that field. They're not personal trainers, they're not dietitians or nutritionalists, and they don't what works for one person won't necessarily work for another, but they don't have the knowledge to determine that. They're not qualified. But we believe them and we trust them because it all fits in very nicely with their brand. So this study wanted to look at how that potentially affects self-help and how people seek self-help with the sort of emergence of this well-being movement of celebrities online. There's a lot of books coming out. There are events, festivals, all centered on well-being, but promoted by people who don't necessarily have the expertise. So for the study, we designed two profiles. We have Dr. Sutton, who is the professional, and Lottie, who is a social media celebrity influencer. Each profile had a description of a short activity, a sort of 5-minute reflection in a morning, just to start your day well. Participants were shown this profile before asked the questionnaire. The questionnaire had demographic questions, a set of questions for each profile on their personality traits. How likely were you to buy the self-help book from each profile? A set of questions on what would influence you to seek help, and then what sort of help would you seek. So the options were look online, I would seek help from a professional, I would attend counselling, that sort of thing, or speak to friends and family. The study fully adhered to the BACP and the BPS ethical guidelines, and there were no issues there. Participants were aware that they had the right to withdraw at any time and the right to remain anonymous. We included a prefer not to answer option for all the questions. So all the participants were over 18. with online access, as it was an online questionnaire. There were no restrictions or limitations, as I've said. They were recruited using adverts on Facebook, Instagram, and Sonar, which is the Bangor University site for the psychology and social sciences to participate in research. If anyone knows what Sonar stands for, please pop it in the comments. That would be greatly appreciated. The study was a mixed measure design, so all the participants answered all the questions for both profiles, and we did manipulate what profile they saw first. So some participants would see Lottie profile first, some would see Dr. Sutton. So the results showed that the Dr. Sutton profile was assumed to be authentic, authoritative, credible, informative, reliable, and trustworthy. And Lottie, attention-grabbing, cheerful, creative, emotional, fashionable, and personable, which is very much fitting with what we would expect for people to assume of a professional and an influencer. Possibly shows that the profiles were written very stereotypically, which isn't a bad thing. So, because these were Likert scale questions, each question for each profile had its own mean. These graphs here show the mean scores. So it's on the first graph are the ones where Dr. Sutton profile scored significantly higher. So for the credible example, the T-score was 10.78. So it was highly significant that he was more credible. But that doesn't mean Lottie wasn't credible, just not as credible. Same for Dr. Sutton there on the second graph, being emotional. Lottie scored significantly higher as being more likely to be emotional, but he wasn't not emotional. It just wasn't significant. So with this graph, it shows the traits where they were perceived very similar. There was no significant difference between these traits, which is interesting because engaging and honest and memorable are all valuable traits for online influencers and success in building a brand and promoting yourself and doing well. So there was no difference there in these traits. They were viewed very much the same. For the second graph, that's the author of the preferred book. So we asked participants whose book would they prefer to buy. Significantly more people said Dr. Sutton. It was more likely that you would buy his book, but it's not. That doesn't mean Lottie's book would be unsuccessful. It's just people would prefer Dr. Sutton when given the direct choice. So it's all very much in line with current research. There was no shocking results, nothing new. It was expected that each profile would have these traits. What was interesting is that they both shared the engaging, enterprising, honest, memorable, natural, and self-aware, which would mean that both could have success online in self-help and well-being. They're key factors in the influencer's success. That you'd be trusted and people would likely engage with you. We also found that people would seek help for a wide range of issues, which indicates somewhat wider acceptance of personal and mental health issues, which is a current movement on social media. Anyone that gets the Therapy Today magazine from the BACP would have seen in April's edition that the main article there was about TikTok and this increasing group of people that are self-diagnosing, particularly with ADHD, by watching videos of people with this condition. It's become a widely accepted condition, and it's almost cool to have it. It's something people say quite openly, whereas previously there was a bit more stigma attached. So it can be quite dangerous in the sense with young people self-diagnosing, they don't have the expertise, they don't have the training to do that, and so they're not going to get the correct help, and people that perhaps do need the help might get overlooked for these others who claim to have it. So it highlights really that as much as social media can be a tool to talk about self-help and talk about mental health and our well-being, and it's really open, we also really need to be aware that a lot of the information isn't coming from experts. It's not researched, it's not safe. Some of it can even be dangerous. A fantastic example of that is Gwyneth Paltrow and her quite famous recommendation for female with a vagina to steam it, which medical professionals very quickly told people not to. It would be quite dangerous and can result in burns. So the actual advice that celebrities are pushing on social media isn't always very good, certainly not backed with science, and it would be really important for people to recognise that line of where it is potentially dangerous and damaging, and it's reached its limit. They're not qualified to talk about this sort of thing. This study did find that people were more likely to engage with help seeking if they were recommended to by a professional, by friends, or by family, which is really positive. And I'll put more information in the handout about what type of help seeking behaviour that they would do, because that's quite interesting as well. They were more likely to speak to people that they knew and engage and connect. But that also fits in quite nicely with the parasocial relationships that people create online with their profiles. So connecting with someone online almost makes you feel like you're in a community, like you know that person, and you'd be more likely to join in, you'll be more likely to copy their well-being activities, and attend their festivals, read their books, and spend time with that person. Even though it's not real, it could help people to connect in a way that they're not able to in real life. And ultimately, if that leads to self-help and them feeling a bit better, that's a good thing. I said we just need to be aware of the limits of that, and when experts need to step in and we need to seek professional help. But, in conclusion, there's a place for celebrity self-help books, and they can be really useful for people who need to connect on a personal level. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments, and I'll do my very best to get back to you as soon as possible, and I will add my references and further information into the handout. Thank you very much.